Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks. Russia's hybrid pressure on NATO countries results in the alliance quickly developing new ways to counter the threat. Latvia is the scene of testing new state-of-the-art technology, AI-powered drones, and Lithuania wants to close the border crossings with Belarus and Russia, while Poland wants to reopen border crossings with Belarus. And to talk about this and more, we're joined by Philipp Köker, political scientist at the Leibniz University, Hanover. Good afternoon. So let's start.
Good afternoon. Let's
start with drones. Winter is coming fast. Well, it's never a good time to install new military infrastructure, but when will we see a proper drone wall on NATO's eastern flank?
Yeah, that's something that's a really pressing issue, and it's really difficult to predict. I think we've seen in the last months that that Central European countries, but also those in Western Europe, aren't really prepared yet for any kind of drone warfare. We've seen this with drone incursions, not only into Poland, into Lithuania, but also various drone sightings around Western European airports where nobody quite knew how to react to those. And so while countries are certainly working towards new capabilities in that way, I'm not sure we're going to see a proper drone wall anytime soon.
Well, then what do you make of, sticking to drones, what do you make of NATO AI-powered drones being tested right now in Latvia?
Yeah, I think this is really, it really shows which countries within NATO are most sensitive to the new threats that we're actually seeing. And this is certainly the Baltic states, Poland, who've long been wary of Russian or Belarusian intentions. So it's definitely a first step. But the question is really, will all countries contribute? I mean, of course, they're now tested under the auspices of NATO. But it's another question of whether funding will be allocated. Will the US be behind it, which let's say, under the leadership of Donald Trump, has become a less and less reliable partner for other NATO members.
Well, different countries have different approach to Russia's aerial incursions. While some of them would like to definitely down everything that enters their airspace, the others are a bit more reluctant. Should there be one strict NATO policy in this case?
Yeah, I think it would certainly help to have a unified front when it comes to NATO. The different kind of drone incursions or provocations, also these weather balloons drifting from Belarus into Lithuania, where we don't quite know whether it's actually something that's state sanctioned, whether it's some kind of criminal activity. It really shows that, well, countries aren't prepared, but it's most likely also part of the strategy by Russia to test Western defenses. And we've seen countries aren't quite sure how they should react themselves, even less so how they should coordinate any kind of response towards these attacks. So Russia certainly tries to sow disunity here in NATO. And of course, some of these incursions only affect, for example, the Baltic states or Poland, and not so much the other members. And so I think it's very important here that NATO members who are further away from Russia also recognize the threat of this and see this as part of a larger strategy of Russia testing military capabilities, which we've seen tested with these drones, with these balloons, but also with Russian military aircraft entering, albeit only for short periods of time, the airspace of other NATO members.
I'm still wondering, do you think that there's this tiny possibility that it's in fact pure criminal activity across the Belarusian Latvian Lithuanian border, with the meteor balloons? That seems improbable.
Yeah, I think that it's highly unlikely at this point that this is only criminal activity. Even before then, it was state-sanctioned criminal activity where certainly the Belarusian authorities would turn a blind eye. But by now, we would assume that all these borders are controlled and protected by state forces to a degree where it wouldn't be possible for any kind of a criminal network to simply launch these kind of operations. I think what's much more likely here is that this is some strategic military operation that comes in the disguise of smuggling balloons, so that there's plausible deniability for the Russian and Belarusian side, but where they will probably still be able to gain a lot of insights about, in this case, Lithuanian defense capabilities.
Lithuania's president wants to close all the border crossings with the Russian Kaliningrad exclave and also with Belarus. While on the other hand, the Polish government wants to reopen its crossings with Belarus. Who got it right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, first of all, it's very understandable that the Lithuanian president says that, well, now they want to cross all border crossings and also any kind of transit through Lithuanian territory into Kaliningrad, because that's, certainly a point where Lithuania can exert pressure on Russia, even though it's very little. Question is, how realistic, how likely is that really? Will they be able to really close not only border, but especially this transit, because that's actually has been negotiated in an international treaty, so it might be quite difficult to actually do this. On the other hand, it probably sends the right signal towards Russia that when Russia violates international law, other countries are also willing to disregard such treaties, to actually work against Russian aggression. Well, with Poland and Belarus, I think we need to keep in mind that still it's an important transit route, not only for any kind of commerce between Poland and Belarus, although Belarus is a market for a lot of Polish goods. There are billions of Polish goods being sold to Belarus, so it's important to have these border crossings open. And there's also more trade going further beyond Belarus and Russia into China through these border crossings. So it's difficult to say on a general level who got it right, but I think both the Lithuanian government got it right for their part and also for their national audience, whereas Poland probably got it right for its own economic interests.
Lastly, it seems that the Baltic Sea is a little more secure place on the world's map than it was before the launching of the Baltic Sentry NATO mission. But in this context, how would you comment on the reports that Russians are training their elite divers in the wreck of MS Estonia ferry?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of Russian activity in the Baltic Sea. Also this has to do with where they see that their natural territory to be, and they want to make a claim that they see this actually as an area that they would like to command. And of course, there are a lot of countries close by each other. So each of them, Baltic states on the one side or Scandinavian countries on the other, with any of the national or NATO troops stationed there, will be vary in engaging in any kind of conflict. So I think even though it's a heavily guarded area, we could say, from a Western perspective, is also the perfect opportunity for Russian provocation, for example, by training its divers in that spot.
Philipp Köker, political scientist at the Leibniz University in Hanover, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews here on TVP World.